Now, this next chart over here depicts something about how quickly money transacts throughout the U.S. economy. There are international implications over here, of course, as well, because money technically does not have borders. But nonetheless, this is a measurement submitted by the U.S. Federal Reserve, and it's known as velocity of M2 money stock. What does that mean? First, what is M2 money stock? It is the supply of all liquid and near liquid money in the United States, checking accounts, CDs, things like that. There used to be something called M1, but that was just too short term of a money measurement. M2 is more comprehensive. So it is a supply of money in the economy, not counting that which is tied up into illiquid asset classes. And the velocity is the GDP divided by the M2 money supply. So when M2 rises by a lot, the denominator, this measurement can go down. If GDP rises a lot, and this is nominal GDP, remember, not real GDP, so GDP with inflation counted, which in some ways is a measurement of more value than the real GDP number. So velocity is GDP divided by M2 money stock. Now, since quantitative easing began, both in the United States and worldwide, the money that has been printed has not circulated quite as fast. And this is because the central banks of the world deliberately print money in the form of buying assets that have a very low circulation rate. In the case of the United States, all the money printing they do, quantitative easing, is in the form of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. Therefore, it doesn't circulate right away. It takes several years for it to circulate. This is why the very wealthiest entities and people become more and more wealthy, but they don't spend that money. And that is why less and less of that is trickling down to the bottom 90%, certainly the bottom 80%. It trickles down eventually, but that is years later. And that is why the way they print money is exactly the way that money would not diffuse efficiently throughout the economy. And as longtime viewers of this channel know, I advocate a much more diffuse and granular form of money printing, since money printing has to be done permanently and exponentially anyway. But as you see here, because of the nature of their money printing, this velocity of money measurement has fallen a lot. And with the unusually high amount of money printing due to the COVID-19 crisis, it fell even more. And it did not rise for a while. It's only starting to rise now, partly because of some deprinting and partly because of the huge printing done here finally circulating. But many people who are inflation narrative zealots, who like to say high inflation is going to show up any day now, they were hanging their hat on this as one of their last hopes, saying that when velocity of money rises again, inflation will be high. But as we can see, this rise has not caused inflation to be high. In fact, over the last 12 months, inflation has collapsed, and now the remaining distance for velocity of money to go, if it even were to get back to this level of 2018 and 19, is not very much at all, even if it were to rise quickly. But if it rises at this rate, that's even more of a gradual increase. So the chance of this causing additional inflation or a second wave of inflation is absolutely nil. Now, ultimately, as the type of money printing done eventually becomes a granular form of diffuse money printing, which I advocate, sending cash directly to people and then reducing income tax by a similar amount, then this velocity of money could become high again. But even that will not cause high inflation, because that runs into the technological forces that feed on inflation to produce more technology. I have videos about that elsewhere on this channel as well, but this is the velocity of money chart for those interested in monetary economics and the ratio between productive output as measured by GDP and M2 liquid money in the economy. Thanks for watching.